Hello, what is up, everybody? My name is Mario Pichardo. Every now and again, I like to do a video where I'm kind of just talking to you about political ideas or just kind of a concept. I like to talk. I like to do kind of like a lecture style discussion. So today, I kind of we'll just see where it goes. But let's start with for today. Um, Here, give me a second. I have a list of a bunch of topics on here. If you're watching the video, you already know what the topic is, but I don't yet. So here, let's look. I have this app where I just write down. Oh, let's start there. I was writing on. So I'm writing a book, and I'm writing in the section about love, um, and all different kinds of things. I realized one of the things I realized when I started writing was that you don't know, especially if you've never written before, or you're not used to writing. You don't know what to say and when to say it or how to say it. You kind of just uh, and so you can kind of get like not writer's block, but you can kind of get discouraged. You can get you can waste a lot of time thinking about, well, what's the right word that I should use here. uh Damn it, I can't get this to flow right, so on and so forth. And I think that what I found is that, well, I just write anyway, and I write whatever comes to my mind, if it's the subject, or just write. I try not to get the perfect word. I just write it, what I'm trying to say, even if it isn't written the correct right, just the right way, because I know that I'll be able to go back later, and put pieces together the way that it was meant to be. But uh, in that way, I keep myself from getting discouraged or losing momentum. Um, but so today, let's talk about love. So yeah, I mean, this is a big topic, right? I mean, there's a lot of facets to love. There's the love of another person. There's a love of country. What I really mean is kind of the relationship love. Uh, because you can have love with a you can have a relationship with a parent that's very different from a relationship with a friend. That's very different from a relationship with a kid that you have, like your own child. That's very different from your relationship with your spouse. And so I think it's so interesting when you have all of these different kind of things, but they all exist simultaneously. And the relationship between two people is never really quite the same. And that's really interesting. And especially something that Jordan Peterson said, that he talked about, which was the idea that, well, he says, you can have a relationship with someone, um, relationship with your child, um, but you can also not like your child. You can also not like them. Um, and that's interesting, isn't it? You can love them to death, but in some other way not like them. And that speaks a lot to who we are as people, as humans, that we can kind of make that distinction. And it also says that we're not perfect, because a lot of that is based on what kind of emotions do we associate with this person. Do we associate anger, uh, tension? Do we associate any of these feelings with someone? Well, we're probably not going to like them, right? But even the person who just makes us laugh, we're going to like them a lot, because they make us feel good about ourselves. Literally, because they're helping to release the endorphins, um, that are flood our body when we laugh, to mask the pain of all these organs moving. um, so love, there's many different kinds of love, and love is really, we'll look at it from kind of like a biochemical point of view, is really just uh, a chemical high. And that's not to discredit it, that's not to bring it down. But when you look at it from a biological point of view, and you know what, there are also, there's a spiritual component to it. And so there are even facets to love that we cannot measure, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not there. Okay, you can have a spiritual connection with someone, um, but not really be able to associate it necessarily to a neurochemical uh, or anything like that. So you can have like a real love between two people. You know, me and my girlfriend. We could have a real connection. Uh, but I know that I like her because of this chemical rush that uh, she causes, or you know, the same with my father, or the same with my best buddy. You know, when I'm around them, I get a release of a certain chemical, whether it's oxytocin. Usually it's oxytocin. Oxytocin is known as the love chemical Simon Sinek talks about. But it's the release of these chemicals that allows us to feel a certain thing when we're around someone, when we're talking to someone. It's like, okay, whoa, this rush, this emotion is like crazy. Um, but that is what we're after. You could look at people as uh, drug addicts, and they're constantly chasing another high. And the reason you know that is because when you don't get dopamine, the chemical responsible for feelings of happiness, um, you can get sad, you can get depressed, really depressed. If you don't feel like you're making progress in something, you're not going to get that dopamine release, so you're not going to feel happy. And so, you know, Tony Robbins says happiness comes from making progress. That is what it is, right? Um, but what does that say about us? We're a part of who we are needs that chemical release, and so we are. You could say in a way that we are, you know, druggies. Where we're after this release. We're after. And why do people go after the heroin? Because it releases or it mimics a chemical in the brain to release a certain substance. But you can look at love that way too. And again, it's not to take away from love, but it's to look at it in a different angle. And so you could say that about, you know, and then you could say, well, I want to be around funny people because it releases other chemicals. It releases endorphins in my body. And there are other neurotoxins. There are other neurochemicals that release a bunch of other things in the body that do all sorts of different things. Some of them pleasurable, some of them not. But you know, on a biological level, that's what that is. And so um, I think the original design by God was so that, you know, we would do things that are made us feel good, were things that were usually good for us, or had some impact on our survival rate. I think that was his original intention. And so when he designed us that way, without the idea of sin, things were meant to go right. But it's when obviously we decided to sin that all of these kinds of abuses of the system started to happen. And you can really look at sin like that too, because you could say, well, what is sin? And sin is really, and you can tell what sin is by looking at what God describes as doing the right thing. Because he says doing the right thing is really only two things, really. Two things you have to do. And that covers everything. And Jesus says, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And then the second thing is love your neighbor like yourself. And so the first one, love your God. Well, when you read about God, when you read about the Bible, when you read about his character, what do you see? You learn about this guy who wants you to have good relationships with your brother, who wants you not to lie. He wants you to follow his will, and strive to be like him. And when you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? Let me look at who God is. Well, God is someone who is holy. He's someone who always does the right thing. He's someone who is strong. He's someone who isn't afraid to bring justice, who's long suffering, and all of these other things. And he wants us to kind of try to get closer to that, to being that. And so when you look at it from that kind of angle, and then the second thing that he talks about, which is love your neighbor like yourself, when you bring those two things together, you can see what God is trying to create you as in your character. Because again, a lot of the things that the Bible talks about are about the things that you do. And a part of everything you do starts in the mind, starts with those thoughts. And so God says, Even a woman, even a man who looks at a woman, who thinks lustfully or in his heart is commits sin, because he knows that a lot of these things start in the heart. They start with the emotions. Um, but when you look at that character, that archetype, it is one of being noble, of doing the right thing, of being courageous, and all these other things. And so, well, we can extrapolate that backwards and to say, okay, well, then what is sin? Sin is, well, not fulfilling those things, not looking out for someone else. What usually is a reason why someone doesn't look out for someone else? Anger. You know, God says, don't be angry. He says, someone who calls his brother an idiot, someone who goes to try to worship of me and not have made up with his brother shouldn't even be here. He needs to go do that. Because why else is he here? He's not doing what he needs to do. And so it's interesting because you can start to kind of build a frame. And this is where Christian Judeo values come from. This is Christian Judeo values, right? You can look at our laws, look at our system, where it says, you really have to prize the life of another person. That was one of God's original messages to us. And so someone who's sinful is can really be summed up in that one thing. They don't love God, and so they're not about justice. They're not about real love to another person. They're not about humbling themselves to God, and they're definitely not about showing another person love to some degree. It doesn't mean you can't believe in God and you can't have most of these qualities. It doesn't mean you can't not follow God, and you can't be someone who who doesn't love their neighbor, loves everybody that they meet, and would never wish bad on another person. But that's where that idea that's where our values come from. And and that's where the original idea of love came from too. And we'll talk about that right now. Actually, that original idea of love from God was that loving your neighbor, or that loving someone else, was being open enough to tell someone when they were on the wrong path, not in a malicious way, but not telling them that sinning was okay. And that was in the context of God. And so, when we became a society that had these Christian Judeo values, it was about following that framework, that if you wanted to be successful, if you in a societal way, then you would be a society that didn't hold back because you wanted to feel good. In other words, I was talking to my friend about this. The Bible doesn't approve of homosexuality. It's not something the Bible approves of. And so, I had a conversation with him and someone else, and they got mad at me because I told my friend that. And they were like, why would you say that? That's like not true, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not love. And I said, it is love. And they said, no, it's not. And I said, love is not practicing tolerance for everything. If your sister's a druggie, you're not gonna just sit by and let them do drugs. That's not loving. Loving, in that case, you'd go there, you sit there, you say, hey, you can't do this. This is not good. Stop. I'm not gonna support this. It's the same way with homosexuality. And a lot of people can point at it and say, well, it's not a victimless crime or whatever. But we have to understand, well, where did that even come from? That came from the Bible, because the stories in the Bible, the character of God, the loving God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and loving yourself and loving your neighbor, meant that you wouldn't act in ways that God didn't approve of. Right? If you love God, if you really love God, you're not going to do things that he doesn't want you to do. And so, and so listen, even though it's hard to talk about that today, and a lot of people are afraid to say that, especially politicians kind of come out there and say, oh, well, I don't approve of gay marriage, I don't approve of this. um, when you're looking at it from a biblical point of view, uh, God's set in His ways, and though the times may change, but what's popular may change, Christians aren't meant to change with the times. So that's the real idea of love. The biblical version of love is that idea of, listen, though you may not agree, though you may not um, like what I like or whatever. Um, Real love is me telling you that this isn't okay, and me being willing to carry my own cross in that moment of saying I don't agree, and allowing that other person to judge you, allowing them to judge you by showing them real love. And that's part of what God meant. You will be persecuted. YouTube would love to say, oh, get him off the air. This guy's talking about intolerant. And a lot of other people too. And then that's what Jesus talked about, persecution. Listen, no one's saying that you can't do it. Okay, no one's saying I'm not here to restrict your right. I'm saying no, because that's not what God talks about either. It's a personal choice that people make. You can go out there and do whatever you want. But I would be remiss if I encouraged you to do that, because that's not love. That's not real love. That's not. And so there's kind of this kind of conflation of what love is and what love isn't. That's why I have very little respect for these politicians who go out there and they change their opinion with what's popular because they just want to get elected, instead of standing for a core set of ideas or beliefs. I don't trust them. Just don't trust them as far as I can throw them. But yeah, and so when I think of love, I don't think there's any way to really have that conversation without talking about what that biblical definition of love is, and that's what it is, and that is it. Love is that moment of being willing to be open, being willing to say things how they are, and not being a cultural relativist. It's about being a biblical foundation. And so you kind of have different kinds of love, right? You have your love for your friend would be different from your love for your spouse. And it's interesting how that's different and how we're kind of structured for that. And going off on the topic, another thing that God says that I'd be remiss not to mention is when He says love is the greatest form of love that one person can show for another is giving their life for another person. And I was watching Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and a lot of these other movies too. But there's scenes in some of these movies where the character really gives their all, and they do whatever they need to do, or they don't. But you see them fall, and it just, even though you wouldn't have thought about it a moment before, it inspires tears in you. It inspires these feelings, these emotions, and you're like, oh shit, what's this? And it's like, oh man. But it really does, and it really does. And it's like, okay, what's going on? These feelings, or these emotions, or these it speaks to something inside of us where it's like, I don't know if it's that we want to, no, it's kind of the understanding, the understanding of the meaning of what just happened, that this person would give their life so that you could survive, so that this group of people could survive. And seeing that, just, it literally brings tears to my eyes, seeing something like that. And it's like, wow, it's that feeling of this person loves so much that they would do that for someone else, it it's indescribable. But Jesus talks about it. But then you can't help but you think about him and his sacrifice and say, wow, that's God. And even though I haven't seen God do this, the fact that I can see it through other people and know that he was the one who did that is, wow, that's love. It's hard to, I don't know. It's I guess it's something you have to, I'm sure everybody's been through something like that, but it's like through a movie. But that's love, and the love I have for my child, I want to see, him or her do the best they can. And I know I need to be there for them to be able to do that. And I know that also, the love that I have, but the love that I have for my friends is going to be something different, right? It's going to be a little different, probably. I wouldn't be as invested, but if they're a really good friend of mine, yeah, I would be. But there's kind of a difference. I mean, most people don't have like, not everyone you meet is your closest friend, right? That sounds weird. But there's some people who think that way, and they're weird. But most people don't have, not for most people, everybody's not your friend, right? Some people are your friends, some people aren't your friend. But that idea is like, wow, what if someone, it's so you have a couple different kinds of people, right? You have friendships, you have romantic relationships, and they're different because when you have a spouse, you're a team and you look out for each other. But it doesn't mean that you two should be together all the time. Of course not. You need to be your own people, and fulfill your roles and be able to do your own things. Have your own thoughts, share your own opinions, hang out with your own friends. Because there's also like a level, I think, where people need to be separated. They need to be their own people. They really do. When I was in a couple of my relationships, and I wasn't that, and I was very clingy, and that really made me lose a sense of identity of myself, of who I was, and that was that sucked. That really sucked, because when you get your sense of enjoyment or fulfillment in other people, ooh, that's bad. That's not. You become really needy, and neediness is not attractive at all by anybody. Nobody likes neediness. Um, it's repulsive, and there's probably a good reason for that. It's probably repulsive because it's like, um, this person can't really ensure my survival. They're so weak that they have to grovel at my feet. And so why do you think that women? So this is the thing. This is another thing, is that with the media, a lot of the TV shows that you watch, a lot of the movies that you see, there's this depiction of the man being this like love struck idiot, who is just fawning over this girl and like makes her the center of his world. And that really throws so many guys through the loop, because they get into the real world or try to get into a relationship, and they're like, oh, whoa, this is not like the movies. I thought it would be just like the movies. It's not. And so we kind of have, and even before then, you kind of get this subconscious like idea of what it's supposed to be. And that, like, for example, there's this one person for you, this one person. That's not, I don't know where that's not true. There's not this one guy, for the one girl. It's not the soulmate thing. It's like not a. It's dangerous to have that kind of thinking. But when you're in a relationship, two people have to be separate. They have to be their own people, their own entities. They kind of come together for to have something greater than themselves, to be parents to a child. And do people fight? Yeah, they fight. But you should fight, because if you're not fighting, it means one of you or both of you is unsatisfied because you're constantly sacrificing something that matters to you for the other person. Look, that's fine. Fighting is normal. The key is if you can communicate through the fighting. And if you can't communicate through the fighting, that's not a good sign. It's really not. And then this other thing that I hear is this idea of, is marriage a good thing for guys? Like, is marriage something that is profitable for men? And the answer to that is heavily skewed towards no. Now I'm a Christian, so I don't say, I'm not pushing the, just hanging out thing. But what I am saying is it really does seem like marriage is heavily skewed against men in terms of how the couple's treated in the courts. So for example, if you got together with a woman, and not even that too, but you have to think about the marriage beyond, I think, the two people. And I think a part of that is, well, yeah, you have two people together. But traditionally, when you go back, the man expected from the woman that she would stay home and take care of the family, and he'd go out there and get the bread. That, well, quite frankly, that's not possible today for most people, because the financial system has been messed up by central banks so badly that, by the Fed so badly that the dollar is worth just a paltry sum of what it used to be worth. And that sucks. And that really sucks. But what that means in real terms, but it's not just the Fed too, because it's also the fact that when women started to work, well, now you can raise prices on things, can't you? Because, and I haven't looked at the statistics or the stats, so don't look at me and say, oh, this is actually factually what happened. But also, when you just think about it, right? When you have two people earning money and everything, and both able to pay for the rent and stuff like that, that you can probably raise the prices, and that can partially make the communities better, but it could also partially make things worse. Just in terms of like the prices, your prices are going to rise. So your prices on everything that you have, the cost of food's going to go up, the cost of rent's going to go up, all these things. And then you have a situation where, because of that, and that being that way for so long, you can't really go back. You just can't. The prices are too high. The how much we make doesn't match it. And so inflation just takes over and just destroys the real value of a dollar. You can see, talk to your grandparents. I remember when a dollar could buy you so much more than it can today. That's a real inflation issue caused by the monetary policy, fractional reserve banking, all these fancy words the corporations make up so that you don't understand, so you can't really get what's going on. They use the fancy words like what's that other one? Quantitative easing. Doesn't sound anything like what it actually means. Quantitative easing means when they print more money into the money supply, which devalues whatever dollars you already have. By the way, that's how inflation is working. The more that they print, the less the dollar is worth, because there's many more of them in circulation. And the value of something is largely determined by how many of that thing there are. It's determined by quantity. Quantity is determining the value of a thing, to a degree. I mean, like if I, but look, if I have a piece of paper, well, there's literally so many pieces of paper, it's like not a thing, right? It's not worth. Now, if it was the last piece of paper, it might be worth a little bit more, right? Than a couple cents, than a cent. But so yeah, I mean, and so when you have that kind of situation, there it's funny because now you have these relationships where um the couple is not really able to go back to that system. And so what you have is like a kind of like a family system now where both people have to be working, that the man is being fed the idea that he needs to kind of go down or like uh be subservient, that anything that he tries to say, that even trying to explain something to a woman is mansplaining, so now that's bad. But you can see just very quickly how all this like political correctness just completely destroys anybody's ability to communicate. um, and so what you see is an attack on a society, an attack on love. It's an attack on relationships, an attack on, by way of saying that it is harmful. And that's always how they get you. The way that you get more surveillance is by saying, "Oh, we need it for protection." Protection. Yeah. Um, and yeah, and so what you have is you have a couple, you have two people, and then the courts are heavily uh, tilted in the woman's favor. And to be honest, looking at everything else, it seems like these relationships between men and women are depressed because they that depression, um, and by depression I just mean like a physical weight on them, uh, and that weight is to signify the stress of having a working relationship right today in 2019. Um, has been done that way on purpose because families are really really the stabilizing factor of societies. If you don't have a stable family, then the government can just swoop right in there and get control. Crime boosts, for single parent homes, for example. In places where there's high concentrations of single parent homes, you have more crime. Um, that's a fact. And then they'll try to censor everything by saying, "Oh, well, that's hate speech. You can't say that. That's hate speech." And so it's dangerous. It's a very dangerous time to try to speak truth. And I think that, who was it? George Orwell, I think it might have been, who said, in times of great corruption or something like that, that telling the truth would be a revolutionary act. It probably wasn't him. I don't know. Whatever. The concept still holds true, but so when you look at love, it's an attack on love. But what love was really meant to be was um, a way to bond people together. And so what we knew is that people were never really meant to be alone. And God talks about that in the Genesis, um, where He says that He made man, but man was not. Something was missing, and so He made a woman to keep him as a companion, to be his companion. Um, and that says something right there on its own, that we were never really meant to be on our own. That was never the design. That was never the idea. The original focus of humanity was never to kind of just be solitary. But then when you look at the technology and how the technology has impacted people, I'm not saying this is like a something that's caused by the government or something like that, but um, when you look at the technology, uh, it has separated people. It certainly has, and the impact of that has been that, and it's not just that; it's the constant fear mongering of everything's dangerous, everything's dangerous. Um, People don't really sit out in their front porches anymore, at least not in any suburban area I've been to. Um, People spend more time inside their houses than outside of it, and they certainly don't have guests over all the time. And so, we have people who not only does not have the social skills to go out there and talk to people, but they're loners. And I know because I'm kind of one of them. But it's not, you kind of have this like society that's kind of breaking apart in that way. And you have romantic relationships that are becoming ever harder because to really get into a romantic relationship now, you have to take on a lot of risk. What if the other person decides that they don't want to? A woman has a lot of power in the courts. They almost always get the children. They're almost always going to get half of what you have, just as a matter of consequence of how it's working right now. And society's teaching them that they shouldn't clean, or that they shouldn't, or that for them is oppressive. And so, well, okay, well, now you have a society where the benefit to the man is, yeah, this woman could have my kids, but she could also make life a living terrible thing for me. And I don't want that either. And so, it's hard. It's hard. And so people say, well, then men need to kind of go their own way. That whole MGTOW thing, where men have just literally going their own way. In other words, they're rejecting marriage, they're rejecting relationships with women, because they see female hypergamy, which is a woman's desire to constantly look to trade up partners, which is an innate, and it's not misogyny, please, but please, because it's all these word games, but it's true. It's they're constantly looking to trade up. It says as part of kind of like a survival mechanism. And this isn't something that's personality based. It's just a part of the woman's process. And so I think a lot of men look at something like that and they say, okay, well then I don't want to have anything to do with women, because you kind of look at it and you kind of get repulsed by it, because a man and a woman's perception of love is fundamentally different. It's just different. And so from that perspective, from the hypergamous perspective, and men deciding not to be in relationships for that reason, I think is mistaken. But it also says a lot about what men think today about relationships and where we need to be instead of where we are. Because, I always like to look at a woman and say, well, a woman is really a mirror for a man as to if he is meeting that kind of expectation of what a man's supposed to be. Because a woman will tell you, and they're very honest. If you're not matching up, if you're too insecure, if you do something, they'll tell you. Okay, but there's a good reason for that too. It's meant to build men up. Okay? Usually if a woman leaves a man, it's not to say that it's always his fault at all. But it's an indication that not all the time. You have to be very careful how I say this. It can be an indication that you weren't being a man. A woman's looking for security in you. Can you provide that? And that's really part of the question. Now there are other factors that would determine, her action, which is society's fault. Where really it's our fault because we've allowed society to do this. We've had the power the whole time. It's our fault. It's our parents' faults, because we didn't do anything. But and we kind of just let it happen. But then on some cases you could say, well, I didn't know, so but this is where we're at. And so you kind of have that action by the woman, that hypergamous nature, which is a mirror onto the man, for the man to step up to be a better man. And they'll vote with their feet. And if you don't step up, then you didn't step up. And now you got to move along, deal with the consequences. Life is not easy because there's suffering, and so there's love. And that's interesting too, because that love between a man and a woman then is very, very interesting. It immediately becomes different. If a woman doesn't feel that way about you anymore and she leaves you, well, then that's a clear indication that men and women think differently. And there's other reasons too to indicate that men and women think differently, but they think differently for survival reasons. That's important. But also, they think differently for reasons that are like attraction. Because when you think about two people, does somebody want to be around another needy person? No, not really. They'll put them at a distance. But eventually it's too much, just too much. It's a very icky, it's not a good feeling for anybody. And so yeah, there's that difference in love. But I guess that was good. That was a good talk. So we'll pick it up on the next one, and I'll see you guys later. Share this with anybody if you think this would be helpful. And I'll kind of see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.